To Liberty Blue, the best Rangers podcast in town. I am Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis. We scream about the Rangers so that you don't have to. This is episode 46, live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and we're available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Today's show is all about Rangers versus Devils game 4 tonight. What the Rangers have done to this point to prevent the Devils from getting comfortable in the series so far. We'll spend a couple of minutes going around some other first-round battles and a whole lot more. Nick, tonight's game, pivotal game 4.
Must win or can't lose.
What's the difference?
One of my favorite cliches. I'm not big for the cliche factory. That is the panels are so tired of each other. Like the TBS panel legitimately did 12 hours of TV yesterday, and by 1 a.m. when the Oilers game ended, they stopped fake laughing at each other's jokes, how tired they were of each other. There was just a lot of eye rolling and guys looking away from the camera at their notes. So yeah, not a lot of cliches to be had. It's been a good series. The Devils are a good team. You and I were just talking about before we came on. Anyone who expected them to win in 4 or 5 games just being a little unrealistic. The Devils were 110 points in the standings. One of the best regular seasons of the last 10 years. The Devils are a good team with lots of star power. Yeah, they didn't really have the goalie, but you knew they were going to get a game or two in here. Even if you felt really good about the Rangers, we didn't. We thought this would be a 6 or 7 game rock fight for a while, but even if you thought the best of outcomes, you don't expect to sweep. It takes a lot to go right to sweep. So there's not really a whole lot to complain about. They've played really well through 3 games. Like you said, they've conceded 1 goal at 5-on-5 through 3 games. It just so happened to be the one that won the game for them on Saturday. But all things considered, this is a pretty good spot to be in. You're up 2-1. You win at home tonight. You go back to Jersey up 3-1. That's a really good place to be in. It's just a matter of taking care of your business.
The Rangers dominated the first 2 games. The Devils rely on creating space for themselves to utilize the speed that they have throughout that roster. And the Rangers, in the neutral zone specifically for the first 3 games, did a really good job of limiting the Devils' ability to get those long passes across, limiting the Devils' ability to come into the offensive zone with a lot of speed. That is how they dumpstered a lot of opponents throughout the year, because they're such a fast team, because they're able to essentially say, if you want to race with us, let's do it because we'll beat you. And the Rangers have mitigated that, and that has been a real credit to how they've played throughout these 3 games. Akira Schmid came in game 3 and played well, and he stopped a couple of goals from going in and a couple of posts and et cetera, and the Rangers end up only scoring 1. They went 0 for 5 on the power play, which, I mean, if they scored 1 goal in the power play, the game is over and the Rangers are up 3-0. So if the Rangers through 3 games, especially at 5-on-5, have played really well, they've been able to mitigate the Devils' strengths, and the Devils have really struggled as a result of that. Their really only sustained pressure has come on the power play, and even then, the Rangers have, for the most part, done a really good job of mitigating that as well. Now it's just a matter of, okay, well, you didn't do so well in the power play in game 3. If you score 1 or 2 in the power play in game 4, that should spell victory.
Yeah, no, it's really simple. When you talk about the playoffs this time of year, you want your formula to be something in the neighborhood of 4 goals a game. You score 4 goals more often than not, you are going to win. That's what the average team that wins the Stanley Cup averages per game, about 4 goals per game. You figure they had 5 each in 1 and 2, and only 1 in game 3. It all will eventually average out if the team is really going to go on the type of run that it seems like it's capable of doing. Yeah, I feel pretty good. I wouldn't say great. There are definitely little things, because game 1, game 2, especially game 1, the Devils were out of their depth. 5 minutes into that game, you knew the Devils weren't coming back in that game. The Devils looked very timid. They weren't very aggressive. They weren't able to use that speed. The Rangers turned that game into a bit of a slog at the start. A lot of forechecking, a lot of dumping the puck down low, forcing the Devils to go the entire length of the ice to get to offense. Really encouraging to see that the Rangers did what you're supposed to do when you play a team with a lot of speed. You clog up the neutral zone, you force them to go to the length of the ice anytime they want to create offense, and that makes for a good recipe. If you make the other team do stuff they're not good at, you are going to get to exploit it. That's what happened in games 1 and 2. They cycled the hell out of the Devils. The goal that I believe it was Tarasenko scored, where Fox set him up, beautiful. Fox brings the defender out to him. Fox walks the guy, back pass to Tarasenko, who fills in the wide open space. Kind of a similar play, actually, to what Dougie Hamilton scored on, where defender followed the puck carrier dropped the puck into the open space, shooter skates right in, clean look. The other thing I will mention, because you said it, the Rangers have only conceded one goal at 5-on-5, and the goals they've conceded in this series, most of them, the goalies haven't seen them. This has been a really net front heavy series, and I think that's in part because of the types of defensemen on both of these teams. I've talked about this a lot, where you feel really good about Fox and Lindgren out there, but their one deficiency as a pair is they're both a little small. They're not great at winning those leverage battles for position in front because they're smaller guys. The Devils, it's largely the same thing, even though their guys are a little bit bigger. Guys like Kevin Ball, guys like Dougie Hamilton, a little bit physically bigger. They don't play that much bigger. They're a little bit slower. So you're going to have those situations. Like I forget who it was, the one CJ Chituro, who was tweeting about how Kreider got lucky that, tipped 4 goals in. Well, if he's unmarked in front of the net, there's not a lot the goalie's going to be able to do.
That was a very silly tweet.
Yes, anytime you're talking about stuff like that, there is an inherent amount of luck involved.
Sure.
Yes, that's the way life exists. There's variables, whatever. But if you are entirely unmarked with open space around you, and all you got to do is do the hand-eye coordination thing that Kreider works on, incessantly, whether it be in practice and warm-ups, whatever. He's the best net front guy in the league at deflecting pucks in over the last couple of years. When you're going to let a guy do that over and over and over again, you're going to figure it out eventually. Like, even if those don't go in, those are really good looks. Sure. You keep accumulating good scoring chances over a series, good things will happen eventually. And that's why you got to be encouraged, because the Rangers aren't just treading water or head under the water at 5-on-5 and relying on the goaltending and the power play to make up the difference. In fact, you would say in game 3, the 5-on-5 play and the goaltending were great, and the power play was the reason they didn't win. But that's going to happen. Yeah. A series has ebbs and flows. The Devils were going to have a counterpunch. We talked about this. The Devils counterpunch being lineup changes as opposed to schematic changes. That usually bodes well, because when a coach is kind of flailing desperately to find the right combination of lines in the middle of a playoff series without an injury being involved, that typically means they don't have a lot of ideas. When they're in the line blender and they're just trying to find something to get anybody going, that tells you they're a little bit desperate. So far, the Rangers haven't need to do the line juggling. They've been pretty good about playing the way they want to play, with the forecheck going, pucks in deep, all the good cliches that the old hockey men like to talk about. They've done their jobs. They've forced the Devils to play the entire length of the ice. They forced the Devils into making mistakes. I think that's a really good point about why they were able to score all of those goals in game 1 and 2, was they were really good at pressuring whoever was on the puck and forcing them to make a decision faster than they wanted to. The Kane goal, he forced Jesper Bratt to move the puck or lose the puck, and he lost the puck. That type of stuff is infectious. When you see guys doing that, same thing with the blocking shots. They got a little carried away with that on Saturday. I will say a few too many snow angels, when if you just stayed on your feet, you would have had a better play and been able to go the other way. But for the most part, they've done all of the little things you want to see in a playoff series that you might not necessarily break out come the regular season, game 48 of the regular season. But so far, I'm pretty content with everything.
This was never going to be a sweep. The Rangers aren't going 16-0, 16-1 en route to the winning Stanley Cup. Like this doesn't happen. Of course, especially when you come out and you dominate throughout the first 2 games, not even in your home building, in the other team's building, of course the Devils are going to come out and throw everything at the kitchen sink to hopefully win a game. That's what they did. Lindy Ruff with those lineup changes. Now, he made the right decisions, because, Miles Wood all he does is take penalties, and so does Brendan Smith. So taking them out of the lineup is effectively addition by subtraction. So by doing those line shufflings and line combinations, he did make his team better. So the Devils really brought everything to the table, and they
went to the rookie goalie too,
and they did that right as well. Like Vanacek, you can't really blame him for too many goals that he gave up in games 1 and 2, but they did the switch anyway, and it woke the team up even more so, and they managed to and even then, with everything on the line, with all those changes, they barely won in overtime because Dougie Hamilton scored the Devils' first 5-on-5 goal in 3 games. Like everything is fine. The Rangers were never going to go 16-0, never going to go like 16-1. Probably isn't happening either, right? Unless something magical happens, unless you turn on NHL 23 and you just play all the games and you go 16-1. I guess I could see that, but otherwise, like this, these things don't happen unless you have a team that literally wins 82 games in the regular season and then they just waltz to the cup. Like these things don't happen. So yeah, the Rangers are going to lose every now and again, but until they lose, 4 out of 7, unless they lose badly or they lose 4 out of 7, I think everybody just needs to relax.
Yeah, the playoffs are weird because you always have the day off after and you got to stew on it. And being that Saturday to Monday, everybody probably went out on Saturday, watched the game with other people, whatever. Sunday, you're a little hungover. You watched the Knicks win. That was nice. But
that was good.
You're left stewing on it like, damn, all they had to do was win that game and they'd be up 3-0. And then all you got to do is win 1 out of the last 4.
Well, here's the thing, too.
Better about it.
Here's the thing, too, is that if the Rangers win tonight, then both the Knicks and the Rangers are going to be up 3-1 in their respective series. So, listen, I'm not saying anything, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I'm a little bit worried. Who's a really famous former NFL player right now who's a few years out of the league with a high profile? Because that person's going to be driving down a highway in a white Bronco in a few months, and I'm a little worried for them. But right now, yeah, everything is looking relatively good. And don't worry, I'm making a mental note of the timestamp. So that way, if they lose tonight, I can just put the Curb music over this because we're being very calm, all things considered. But
yeah.
We're
calm because of how they played. If they come into Game 4 and they look terrible, then obviously we're going to change our tone. This is going to be a whole different conversation for a whole different episode. But as of the 3 games that they played, there's not a whole lot to be worried about. They played really well, and they just couldn't score in Game 3, especially on the power play. They had 5 opportunities. The Devils kept taking penalties. Yeah. Interference calls, tripping calls, like they kept taking these stupid penalties, and the Rangers just couldn't capitalize. If they just scored on one of them, this would be a 3-0 game, and the series would essentially be over. So, but if the Rangers come out in Game 4 tonight and they look bad and they get beaten badly, now that's cause for some concern. But as of right now, before Game 4, I think everything is fine.
Yeah, no. The other point that I think is important is the Rangers have really kind of dictated the way the games have gone so far. They've done a really good job of not letting the Devils use their speed and forcing the Devils to work for offense. This is that cliche the cliche where this is where the hockey men start pointing at the Yanni Gourdes and the Barclay Goodrows and the Nick Foligno types of the world who are going to engage on the cycle, who are going to win those puck battles down low, get the puck out to the point, look for the rebounds, the deflections, the ugly stuff. That stuff is translatable. It's sticky. You can do it game over game over game because it's repeatable. And you've seen the kid line do this for most of last playoffs and so far through the 3 games this year where they get the puck down low. They're really good on the puck on the wall. Kakko's maybe their best wall player other than Kreider. Really good at winning those loose pucks, getting the puck out to the point, especially when they have Fox and Lindgren out there. They really can tilt the ice downhill. When you are dictating the game and you're playing it the way you want to play it and you're forcing a team to play in a way they are uncomfortable, that's going to make them make mistakes. You talked about all the penalties they took. That's an example. You talk about all the turnovers they committed in game 1 and 2, where the Rangers kept dumping into the Devils zone. The Devils would have to regroup, gather, try and break out. And if they didn't successfully break out, the Rangers were right back in there. That's the way when the Rangers forecheck is really going. That's kind of the barometer for the Rangers if they're playing well or not. Are they on all these pucks? Are they in these puck battles? Are they making the puck battles close? That's typically a good sign for them because when they've been clunky, when they've been disjointed, there's a lot of the east and west stuff in the neutral zone. When they're going up and down and they're getting the puck in deep and they're going to get it and engaging on the cycle, that's going to work against the Devils because like we talked about, their defensemen a little bit on the smaller side, more offensive oriented than defensive oriented. So those guys aren't as inclined to be engaged in those physical plays. And that's where you can make plays happen. And that's what's happened so far. The Rangers have done a really good job of putting pressure on the Devils players who are offense first guys who aren't as good at the the what's the word I'm looking for? The physical stuff, winning
Yeah.
those loose battles and trying to turn defense to offense. When you force a team that's good at offense to play more defense, even if they're good defensively, if they haven't played this much defense, that's going to put more stress on it. That's the biggest thing the Rangers have done well so far. They have been on offense a lot, and their defense has not had to play a lot of defense. And when they have, it's been in 5-1 games where the other team is just shooting from wherever. It's not dangerous. It's going to get blocked and going the other way. I feel really good so far about everything they've done.
But I think it was CJ also who was like, yeah, Shesterkin can't this is he can't play this well throughout the series. This can't possibly happen. And meanwhile, that's been
Igor Gober.
This has been Shesterkin's entire MO throughout his entire career. Also, he's rocketing a 950 save percentage through these 3 games. Also, I think this is a big game for Panarin, Zibanejad, also maybe Trocheck. Trocheck was without
Panarin
a point.
and Zibanejad don't show up till Game 6. You know this. We documented this. They get going in Game 6.
Yeah, well, it's important that they do. It's, like Panarin has been better defensively as of late, but his 5-on-5 offense, as we talked about, if you defend, if you want your high end offensive players to come and defend, they can't then turn around and produce the offense that you're looking for. But I do want to see Panarin a little bit more aggressively in the offensive zone. I do want to see, I know Zibanejad, the power play has been very weirdly structured last game where they kind of took him out of his bumper spot. They put him towards the middle of the ice. They changed some things around. Zibanejad couldn't get the shot that he wanted. He did get a couple of looks throughout the 5 power plays, but overall it wasn't where he found the most success throughout the season. And so I'm interested to see how the power play looks in Game 4. I would imagine hopefully the Rangers get at least one of those, because the officiating in the entire playoffs to this point has been less than great. But that's not just for the Rangers
Wes
series.
McCauley time.
Yeah,
Wes
yeah,
McCauley.
That's right. He's the star of the show at all times, and we all know that. But for the Rangers, like, Zibanejad needs a goal. Panarin, I would love a goal from Panarin. I would love a goal from Trocheck. Like, these are guys that, okay, this is Game 4. This is such a crucial game. If you can win this game, you go up 3-1, and you go up 3-1, and you take it back to New Jersey, where you have dominated them both times with the ability to end the series. Game 4 is crucial, and it is very important to me anyway to see guys like Panarin, Zibanejad, and Trocheck really step up here and bring everything they can, and hopefully fill the score sheet.
So one thing you mentioned, you were talking about the power play there, where they have Zibanejad in the spot where Trocheck was in most of the regular season, and then they have Panarin and Kane on the walls, Kreider in front, Fox out front. When it gets cold, and this was true when Trocheck was in that spot as well, it's because they aren't moving. It's because they're just passing the puck as opposed to moving their feet.
They did a lot of that in Game 3.
Yeah, when a power play goes cold, the biggest thing I look for when I'm watching, if they're moving their feet and they're still not really getting good looks, okay, you live with that. That's just, process. But if you're only moving the puck and not physically moving your body, you're not putting stress on the defense. You're not making the defense move. Sure, yeah. If the puck goes from one of the half walls up to the point, the defender at the top of the penalty kill is going to go out to the person with the puck. But that's not putting stress on the guys closer to the net. You want to get them moving east to west, where you're going to have an opportunity for a one-timer on one of the two sides, because they're moving to the other side to play.
You have to make them tired.
Yeah, you have to make them work. And when the Rangers power play has gone cold, it's not just the Rangers power play. If you watch the Islanders don't move. The Islanders stay in the same spot for 2 minutes, and they wonder why they don't get any looks. Because the defense didn't move, guys. You did not put any stress on the defense. So you can target especially with the personnel the Rangers have, where you have a guy like Kreider, who is stronger than every single one of the Devils defensemen, and he's going to out leverage them for position, and has done a really good job with that.
Lest we forget, this man jumped out of a pool with just just because he wanted to. He didn't hold on to anything. That famous, I forget, that video is old now, but I'm sure he could still do it. This man's out here just jumping out of pools on a whim without holding on to anything. This man is just using his sheer strength to jump out of a pool. I'm sure he can bully his way to the front of the net and deflect the puck whenever he wants, and he's done that throughout the first at least 2 games. Now, I know he scored a nice goal in Game 3, but that wasn't an in front of the net kind of deflection kind of goal. In the first 2 games, the Devils literally just kind of left him alone. And
Yeah.
Chris Kreider was like, oh, you're gonna leave me wide open. I guess I'm just so lucky that I'm in front of the net by myself at CJ. That I scored all those goals for the net. But no, like Chris Kreider is one of if not the best modern day deflection guy. Like
Yeah.
if you look at the stats and you look at how many goals he scored in deflections and all that, he dominates.
He's the best one in the entire
He
league.
he
Pavelski was
absolutely
really
dominates.
good for a long time, but Kreider's better than him now.
Yeah,
Pavelski skated today. I hope he's back in that Dallas.
I hope
series.
he's okay. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that was a really scary play, and we'll talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the rest of the series here in a minute. But that was a scary play,
Yeah.
and we forget sometimes as a collective because we're so ingrained in the sport that these are people. Like these are human beings with lives that have bills to pay, that have people they care about. Like these are scary moments. That Joe Pavelski hit was very scary, and the fact that he's like I don't know if he's okay or not, but like he's skating and he's not in the hospital. He's not totally out of game action. Like he's on skates. He's at least doing something physical. Like that's a really good sign. Forget the stars. Forget about the playoffs. Like for his own physical being, that's
Yeah.
that's really good. And I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Circling back around, one other point to make here before we kind of get last couple things on this before we open it up, talk a little more about the league. The longer this series goes, I think that plays into the Devils' hands because
100%.
you keep giving teams opportunities to hang around. That's when it gets difficult. Okay, you've played really well through 3 games. You're up 2 games to 1. You're on home ice for game 4. You feel pretty good. Now you let the Devils win tonight, and you go back to New Jersey in the swing game. You know the stat. What is it? 82% of the teams that win Game 5 in a 2-2 series win the series. Whatever it is, something like that. It's 78, 80. It's high 70s, low 80s.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you don't want to be because you have played really well, and it would be a real pain in the ass for this series to keep dragging on. First of all, Carolina probably going to take care of the Islanders within 6. Like, even if you give the Islanders one more game, Islanders look pretty out of their depth. A lot of stupid penalties trying to muck that game up and they went too far trying to muck that game up. And that actually reminds me of a point I wanted to make earlier. Someone pointed this out, and I think it was Fitz pointed it out. In game 1 or 2 of the series, the Devils kind of looked the way the Rangers did when they played the Hurricanes in the bubble, where they did not have the puck at all, and they were trying to hit everything that moved, and they weren't playing their game. The Devils are not a physical team. If they are chasing the puck and throwing hits after the puck is gone because they feel they need to like prove something about toughness, and there was a little bit of that in the after the whistle stuff in game 3, especially in a tight game, and you saw it at the end of game 2 as well, where if you're getting a team off their game, they're doing things they don't want to do, they're trying to pretend to be tough as opposed to actually being tough, you can tell the Devils were pretty frustrated by the end of game 2. Getting dummied 10-2 in goal differential through 2 games.
At home.
At home, your first home playoff games in 5 years, you could tell that it was weighing on them a little bit. And the Devils have kind of used their kitchen sink. They went to the backup goalie. I'm assuming Schmidt's going to be the good guy from now on, unless something really bad happens where he gets shelled and then they have to go back to Vanacek, whatever. They've used their trump card. They've used their emergency. We need to turn the momentum a little bit. Sure, maybe you see Luke Hughes in a game 6 or a game 7, but I'm not terribly worried about, a college sophomore who has one NHL game and his first NHL experience is going to be game 6 of an NHL playoff.
You say that. You said hey, Chris Kreider was essentially the same player.
Chris Kreider was a lot older. He played forward, and the Rangers also just didn't have anyone who scored goals on that team. Like, I don't know if like Ruslan Fedotenko, like his 15 goals were really important that year. Okay, that team did not have guys scoring goals. Luke Hughes, if he gets in, is playing 9 minutes, and he's going to play third pair with like Kevin Ball or Damon Severson. If Luke Hughes is the best the Devils can do as far as like trying to get the team going again, okay, I'm fine with that. I mean,
well, the thing that is worrying for the Rangers is, like you said, you can't let a team like this hang around, because the more that they do that, the more confidence the
The
more
more they're going to believe.
the more confident they're going to be in playing their own game, and the more time they'll have mentally to figure out how to counter the Rangers. It's one thing for the coaching staff to look at the tape and to hammer out, okay, like this is what you're supposed to do at this time and that time. But what the longer the longer the series goes on, the better chance that the Devils players in game action will understand timings and figure out, okay, well, Truba's tendency is to do this at this time, but if I, wait a second and pass it at this time, oh, well, that creates a passing lane and Jack Hughes is open on a break or something like that. Like the more time you give the Devils to cook, the more likely they are to utilize it and figure out how to beat the Rangers. So if you stomp on their necks now and say this series is over, what are you going to do about it? Then the mental is going to be a lot worse than it would be going back to Game 5. The series tied. All of a sudden, the Devils are like, "Hey, we just beat the Rangers twice in MSG. All we have to do is win this one at home, and then we could go back to Game 6 at Madison Square Garden and make 18,000 people upset." Like that is major. The Rangers have to win this game now, because if they don't, all the momentum and all of the mental is on the Devils' side.
100%. The reason you feel good, the biggest reason I feel good, and it's very obvious, is just Igor's locked in.
Yeah.
I went back and rewatched the entirety of Game 3 this morning to do some show prep and took some notes. I mean, the Devils had some pretty good looks, and he was square on all of them. He didn't lose his net at all. He was perfect position, exactly where you want to be. Like, there was one sequence where Bratt came in on him, tried to shoot 5-hole. He knocked it down with his chest, and then I want to say it was Hischier came in to try and clean it up, and he was perfectly square to it. He didn't even have to react because of how well positioned he was.
Yeah.
When he's got his net, that's when Igor gets into trouble, when he'll lose his net because he's so athletic. He's trying to use his body to make up for his size. That's when he can kind of get into trouble a little bit as a goalie. That's kind of when he's shown weaknesses in his game, is when he loses his net. When he's got the positioning down, you don't really got to worry about a lot. And especially considering the defense has played well. We'll give credit where it's due. They have done a really good job of mitigating the Devils in transition, holding them to the outside. I know we talked about this last week in the preview episode, where in the series last year against the Penguins, the Rangers were really collapsing deep into their own zone to try and protect the net and giving the Penguins room to skate in with speed. You skate in with speed, cut to the middle. It's a lot more dangerous of a scoring chance when you're cutting to the middle. The Rangers have done a great job of, when the Devils enter the zone, somebody's there pressuring them immediately, not letting them gain time, not letting them come in with speed, forcing them to dump the puck in and go get it again. When the Rangers are playing defense like this, you feel really good about it, because if you've got the defense playing like this, where they're only conceding a handful of good scoring chances every game, and you've got the best or the second best goalie in the entire world behind that defense, okay, let's score 3 goals and go home. That's right. Really what it comes down to. And that's why you got to feel really good, man. Igor has shown you he's locked in. I mean, you saw him punching Timo Meier when Meier landed on him. Shesterkin's like, get this bum off me, okay? Yeah, you understand. That's the best thing to see, because it was a very different vibe on the internet last year going into Game 4 of the Penguins-Rangers series, where the Rangers got shelled in Game 3, and then everybody's kind of looking at each other. It's like, is the goalie okay? And then he really struggled in Game 4, and then they turned it around in 5, 6, and 7. Please, for the love of God, do not drag this series out to 7 games.
Yeah, please, for everybody's sanity, yeah. But it's not even just about sanity, it's health. With every game that you play, you risk your top guys or whoever getting injured.
And the other part of that is, these guys are all nicked up. Nobody's got like a terrible injury right now. Everybody's hurt. Yeah. Everybody's sore. Yeah. The longer you play with something compromised, I think Rachel Dorier had a really interesting thread about this a few weeks ago, where the point was, like, even if you just have like a sprain, because you have a sprain, you're walking different, you're moving differently.
It's not getting better.
Yeah, you're
it's not getting better when you play playoff hockey. Like if you have a sprained ankle and you are playing Game 6 or Game 7 of a playoff series, you think you care about your sprained ankle? Like, you are going to go as fast as you can. You are going to get, the appropriate medical attention to kind of numb it or do whatever you can to essentially not feel it for 60 minutes. on the ice. Like but you're not making it better by by continuing to play on a sprained ankle. So, but if you sprain an ankle in game 5, but you win the series in 5, then it doesn't really matter as much because yeah, like you're still gonna skate. You're still probably gonna skate or get your practices in, but you give those nicks and bruises and sprains a lot more time and breathing room to heal, because if you drag it to 7 games, not only are you not letting it heal, you are actively making it a whole lot worse, which then impacts your availability, your play as a whole going into round 2, round 3, especially if those series take long, because now you're all you're doing is aggravating your injury and there's no time for you to heal it. So the best thing Rangers can do is win tonight, win game 5, end this series as quickly as possible, get as much time off as they possibly can, so that they whatever Trouba has been dealing with all season, give him a few days of rest. Anybody else has been dealing with stuff throughout the year, give them time to rest and to heal, because if they drag it to 7, they won't have that luxury, and that will be a problem later on in the playoffs.
Okay, so one last thing I wanted to touch on before we open it up to the general playoffs. One of the interesting matchup trends so far is we talked about it going in on the preview episode last week that during the regular season that Zibanejad had the most success against Hischier, and they've done a lot of that line against Hughes during these first 3 games and not as much against Hischier. And granted, everybody plays against everybody in hockey. It's not like basketball where you're going to make subs specifically based on who's on the floor and what situation. Everybody's going to play against everybody. It's just about who you're going to play the most. The one thing I will say is the Rangers have been a lot better when Dougie Hamilton has not been on the ice, and that makes sense. Dougie Hamilton is one of the 10 best defensemen in the entire league. So if they can tilt those situations where Dougie Hamilton's on the ice a little more in their favor, that's really all as far as like nitpicks go, that's really all I got. Like, could you play a little better when one of the best players in the world is on the ice? If you could do that, that'd be great. But other than that, keep doing what you're doing. Like, there's not a whole lot to grasp at here. Everything has been reasonable. There's no glaring problems. Like, yeah, the defensive coverage got a little sloppy there during the 3rd game. Probably the most confident the Devils had been in a game was game 3, because they kind of had that fearless, well, if we lose, it's over. We can do whatever and see what happens. And that's kind of what ended up happening. Anything else you want to get in real quick before we open it up, talk about the playoffs at large?
No, I mean, again, like I think the biggest thing is to just not panic for the fan base and also for the players as well. I mean, obviously the Rangers are totally listening to this show right before they. I think they're actually on warm ups right now. But maybe they have an earbud in their helmets as they're listening to the show. But no, I mean, like, just stop, like, don't panic. The Rangers, if they barely won the first 2 games and they got destroyed game 3, this would be a whole different conversation. The Rangers have played very well through 3 games. A lot of our fears going into the series have largely haven't been reality, and that's to the Rangers' credit. They've played very well. Game 3, they just didn't get done on the power play. Dougie Hamilton, great player. He scored the overtime goal, and Jack Hughes ripped it. A great shot. Shesterkin didn't see it. Trouba literally stood in front of that shot. So it is what it is. Rangers have played well. Game 4 it is.
Yeah, they played 2 of their 2 games. 1 and 2 were 2 of arguably their 2 best games of the entire season.
Agreed.
Games 1 and 2. So that's encouraging when you can break that out in the playoffs. So
sure.
Playoffs at large. The East kind of seems like there's the 2 knife fights going on between Tampa, Toronto, Rangers, Devils. And then the wild card series, those teams seem very overmatched. You saw Matthew Tkachuk kind of doing whatever he could to try and get the Bruins riled up in a game that was already over. You saw the Islanders do the same thing against the Hurricanes. Out west, the Oilers and Kings have kind of been the most entertaining series. Wild Stars, it's been okay as a whole, but the individual games, there's been a stinker in there here or there, but I'm enjoying it. The officiating is an atrocity.
Atrocious.
Atrocious. There's no consistency, which is the biggest problem. All we want is consistency. Either prison rules or we're calling it by the book. Not any of this, well, we called one on them, so we got to call one on them. None of the ticky-tack game management stuff that you always see. Just some consistency. That's all we ever want. We know they're not going to be able to be perfect. The game happens too fast, and they have to make these decisions too quickly. They can't review everything. That's not feasible. let's find a uniform standard for officiating. That's all we want. Why is this a roughing, but that's not a roughing? Why does Shesterkin get called for that roughing when he's punching Timo Meyer for landing on him? Why does Adam Fox get called for a roughing by grabbing a guy from the chest and pulling him from a pile? He didn't throw any punches. He didn't go into the
that was
pile.
silly.
Everybody was grouped up, and he grabbed a guy and moved him out
Well,
of the way.
it's similar to how the NHL has not a single modicum of understanding of what goalie interference is. It's the same thing with playoff penalties, where the referees will make it about themselves and they will go about deciding the game however they so choose. Like a lot of the times, the penalties that are called it's wild how often in this first round both teams have been ridiculing the officiating. Like it would be, I would understand it, a little bit more so if it was like more of a one-sided affair, but like everybody's mad. Everybody's mad. Everybody is irate at how the officiating has gone throughout the first round, whether it be in the Rangers Devils series or in the LA Kings Edmonton series. Like every series has had multiple issues with the way the officiating has gone. And that is such a major issue for the NHL because instead of talking about, oh, how great these games have been, how fun it's been to watch playoff hockey, no, one of the biggest storylines is the referees have no idea what they're seeing, what they're calling, what they're seeing, what they're doing. The referees have no idea. And that's a major problem for the league. We're not talking about like, oh, well, Edmonton, LA was so fun last night watching them play and watching Zach Hyman and score the overtime goal. And the Edmonton Oilers came back. They were down 3-0 after the first period. It felt like it was over. And then they came back. Like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about how the officiating overall in this playoff so far has been a disgrace to the game. Like, if you're going to, again, like you said, if you are going to call certain things, you have to call it consistently. You can't just be like, okay, well, this is a call, but the same thing 20 minutes later, it's not a call. Let them play out or what? Like, it's so unpredictable. And that's one of the biggest issues that everybody has a gripe with when it comes to playoff hockey. It's like, if you have to be consistent in your calling, either this is a call from here on out, or this is not a call from here on out. You can't just willy-nilly, just randomly pull out of a hat like, oh, hey, this is a penalty now. Look at that. Or like, hey, actually, this piece of paper out of the hat that I'm pulling says it's not a penalty. So keep playing. That is the most frustrating thing about these playoffs so far, is that nobody has any understanding of when the referee is going to call a penalty, and everybody's mad.
Yeah, all we want is consistency. And I'll say this because this applies to the broadcasts as well. No, they are not against your favorite team. For the love of God, please stop with they're biased, they're biased, they're biased. The officials are incompetent,
right?
And the national media has notes they are given by the league and the teams to highlight things to talk about. No, Ray Ferraro does not hate the Rangers. No, Sean McDonough does not hate the Rangers. Ken Danico hates the Rangers, but that's different.
Yeah, sure.
That's different. If you're watching the Devils broadcast, you know what you're going to get.
The referees also don't hate your team. They're just bad at their jobs.
Yes,
like,
correct.
They're just like, they don't know what penalties are or when to call them. They are very inconsistent. They don't. Like, it's been a very poor effort from the referees, and that's a concern because like you would think that the NHL is putting out at least like some of their best referees in the first
it's
round.
It's supposed to be. These are the best.
Like, these are the best.
You have to qualify to get postseason assignments.
And yet, this has been a disaster fire. It's only going to, like, it's not going to get any better because like they're going to use a less referees as the series move on. But if the best are bad, then it's still going to be bad. Like, you got to fix this somehow. This is bad. It's not good.
Oh, I found it hilarious that the one referee in the Islanders Hurricanes got hurt, and the reserve referee was Wes McCauley. He was just sitting by like he's a WWE wrestler, waiting for his music to hit to run down and interfere and make himself present in a game. Like, I get it because he was calling the Ranger game the next day, so I get why he was in the area and why he would be the reserve official. But the NHL doesn't help itself. It lends itself to these jokes about the officiating. And we do this every year. There is every year, whether it's guys who are throwing hits, like maybe that guy should have got suspended, maybe he shouldn't have, maybe this is a penalty, this isn't.
Yeah,
we do this.
Jake McCabe also, by the way, should not be playing like that. The Jake McCabe hit in Game 1 he didn't get a penalty for it somehow. I know Michael Bunting on the same exact play got suspended for his egregious hit.
Yeah.
Jake McCabe shouldn't be playing either. Like, that was a terrible hit. They suspended Michael Bunting. Like, good, do that. But how do you not? Hello, like, did he just not do the same thing?
The NHL
Not even a conversation was had. Like, what are we doing? Say play.
The NHL cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. Okay, they are just. It's a miracle the NHL can successfully stage a playoffs. not even like. Well, just like they have the logistics to have 16 teams playing in the playoffs over the span of 2 weeks. That alone is a miracle.
It's so it's tiring to have a sport.
Sucks. You want to talk about the sport.
It's very tiring that when you have a sport that is as entertaining as hockey is, especially in the playoffs, when everything is so amplified and the environment and all the, everybody gives 100% or at least near that in the regular season as well. Yeah, but in the playoffs, everyone is giving every single, atom that they have in order to try to win this game. Like, this is the end all be all for everybody involved. The playoff hockey is so much fun to watch, and yet the referees are just getting in the way. They're making it about themselves sometimes, which is just strange to me. The officiating has been very inconsistent, very strange. Everybody's mad at them all the time because they don't call anything properly. It's been like that. That is so just strange how you have a sport that's so, it is strange and dumb and ridiculous sometimes, but it's also a beautiful and incredible sport that is so much fun to watch. And yet the problem is, besides all the headhunting that goes on in every year's playoffs, there are so many, and I tweeted this out on my personal page at Chelly Andrew as well, is that, like, that's one of the things I hate about the playoffs is every year there are so many hits that go for the head of players. People don't want to talk about it, but, like, it's worth mentioning. There's a lot of hits. If you really watch and see how hits are applied in the playoffs, there's a lot of headhunting hits, a lot of them, and some of them don't get penalties, and some get majors. And you can argue about that until the cows come home. There's a lot of attacks to the head come playoff time, and unless the referees actually want to do something about it, that will always continue, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it sucks. All right, let's get out of here. One last thing. The key for me tonight is what it's been all series. If you slow the Devils down and make them actually have to cycle forecheck, you can wear them down over the course of the game. That's my hope, that the Rangers are a little bit tighter and they can get a little bit more offense. That's really all you need. Like we said, our 3 pillars for success: tread water at 5-on-5, make sure you have at least average goaltending, and you got that, and then 1 power play goal and you're Gucci. That's the math. 3 goals, Igor Gobert, let's win a playoff game.
There you go.
All right, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, whatever podcasting platform you prefer. YouTube as well, full video, live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube every Monday at 6 p.m. Let's win a damn hockey game, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's do it, boys.